Hello and welcome to Conf42Cast, episode 3, Planet ChaosNative. My name is Miko Pawlikowski and today with me our guest Uma Mukkara, co-founder and CEO at ChaosNative. Uma, it's a real pleasure to have you here today. How are you doing?
Doing great, Miko. Excited to be here. Looking forward to having a great conversation.
Okay, so we have this little tradition that we start all of our guests off with the question about pets. If you could have any animal in the world as a pet, what would you pick?
I do have one at home. It's a Pomeranian Indian Spitz dog, cute one. So dog is our favorite pet.
Okay, that's a safe bet. I'm not sure what it looks like. Do you have it around somewhere? Maybe we can link to a photo. We have a lot of dog lovers on the show, so that's great. One thing that, a person notices when they go on your LinkedIn is that you're basically co-founding a third company right now. Does that make you a serial entrepreneur?
I would say yes, in some senses, and not really in some sense, because my second startup was more of a move to open source on my first technology. And I would say this is my real second startup, ChaosNative, which actually I co-founded as part of the previous company. So I did not have any exit yet. So if you're talking about how many exits you made, not yet. So that doesn't count me as a serial entrepreneur. But in terms of co-founding and running companies, yes, I did have fantastic experience in the last 10 years. I'm more confident. So I think I have the general experience that you get from a serial entrepreneur. So feeling pretty good about what we want to do at ChaosNative.
Yeah, definitely. It's very impressive. But before we kind of dive into what ChaosNative is and, your previous companies, what's your favorite and, the most and the least favorite thing about being a co-founder and CEO right now at ChaosNative?
I'm pretty excited about the opportunity here right now. The favorite thing is the opportunity itself. For your audience in this show, I was a co-founder in the previous company, and we built this technology litmus, and then we have chosen to spin it off and then focus on ChaosNative. So I'm very excited about the opportunity and what we can build, the next big thing in chaos engineering. So that's the best thing. The market is pretty encouraging. And the least favorite thing, I would say that as I take on this new role, I will have less time to spend on the actual technology litmus at the code level or at the documentation level, or even to spend a lot of time with the community users. So I would say that's a little bit of a sad thing, but when you take more responsibilities, you need to spend on the execution side as well.
Right, because on the previous one, you were the CTO, so you had a more technical role, and now you're running the show.
I did run a few months, the previous company, but I had reached out for help in running from more experienced people. And then, I was watching as a co-founder, I did get enough experience. So this time around, you ride the ship. So I think we got everything where we want to.
Awesome. Yeah, I know, a lot of people in the chaos engineering kind of realm and ecosystem are following you closely. So let's talk a bit more about Litmus, because, obviously I've been following that for a while now, but not everybody's familiar with Litmus. What's Litmus?
Litmus is a chaos engineering framework written in a cloud-native way. It's a cloud-native application that is supposed to be providing platform, not just to set up experiments, a platform to do your chaos engineering end to end. In fact, I started Litmus as a way to test OpenEBS. Back in 2018, we were 1 year down the line, and I was looking at how to chaos test OpenEBS. We put it in production for our own SaaS platform at that time. So pretty intrigued at that time about chaos testing OpenEBS. Then I ended up writing Litmus just for that purpose. But we open sourced it for fun, really. At that time in 2018 KubeCon, we want to open source something that's useful. That was a great response back then. So it was not really a planned startup, right? I would say ChaosNative. It just happened. Yeah, it grew very naturally, and then the community was growing faster than what we expected. So since last year, we've been focusing a lot more with more resources. To answer your question, Litmus is really that platform that can scale well for your chaos engineering needs, and it's built with open source at its heart. and community at its driving mode, right, for chaos experiments. We are through a good chunk of our journey. We are now at 2.0. Beta will go GA in a couple of months. But I think, we have a basic feature completeness that's required for doing chaos engineering. A lot more to go, but that's what Litmus is right now. And it is a CNCF sandbox project. We have applied for incubation. We'll be moving to that stage hopefully in the next couple of months.
That's awesome. It always helps to have, the official stamp of approval. But I feel like you're kind of underselling Litmus here, because the feature completeness is great, but it doesn't, necessarily help if it's difficult to use. And I think one of the selling points is that Litmus and the ChaosNative is supposed to be fairly easy to use, right? You have the hub with like ready-made experiments. Is that the right impression? Is that the unique selling point here?
Yeah, so the unique selling point, we wanted to build for a larger requirements, right? So first step that we took is let's get the architecture right. Let's get easy to use. Helm charts are easy to use. That's not the end of it. But we wanted to get the chaos operators, the chaos hub, all those basic elements to be available just like it is. And then towards Litmus 2.0, we started focusing on how easy it is to actually use. The ease of use also, there are many aspects to it. One is how easy you can construct and run the chaos experiment. The other one is how easy you can actually see the result and debug your entire system, and then how easy it is to see your logs and in a complex chaos experiment. So we did focus on ease of use towards Litmus 2.0. So right now it's very, very easy just to start one chaos experiment or to create and manage a very complex chaos scenario. Both are very, very easy. So that's also definitely another unique thing about it. Is it's a cloud native application, very easy to get started and scale from there.
Okay, so if I was brand new to that and I wanted to get started, I'm guessing I go to your website. What's the easiest way to get cracking? Do I pick one of the experiments from the hub and take it from there?
The easiest and simplest way is you pick up the Helm chart and then you install it with the latest version of Litmus. You actually get a portal to help you get started. It's a simple web service, a UI service that comes up, the basic username and password. And we have thrown up a ready-made chaos workflows for you, which are right there on the web. For example, a simple pod delete, CPU hog, memory hog, all those. And also we have constructed a couple of end-to-end application, including chaos as well. For example, sock shop and potato, right? So these workflows, what you go and just install and click a few buttons. It actually install your sock shop, set up the monitoring, set up the chaos experiments, and you can run it and then go and use it. And then you get used to how do you do chaos engineering at the basic level. And you can use that template and start changing the experiments to your liking and start tuning them. We also have the capability to add your private hubs, but it's a little bit of a day two operation, right? So you can take things from public chaos hub on day one, and private chaos hub comes when you want to really install it for your real needs.
Yeah, I'm asking primarily because there's still a lot of stigma around doing chaos engineering, and it's still in a lot of people's minds something that's very risky and very unorthodox. And I'm wondering, as a fellow chaos engineering practitioner, where do you think we are right now on like the adoption curve? Like you have for a smartphone, we have early adopters, then you have the early majority, and it becomes mainstream basically afterwards. Where do you think we are right now with this in April 2021?
We are much ahead. The growth adoption curve has been pretty steep in the last 3 to 4 quarters, I would say. I would still say we are in the early adoption. If you take that crossing the chasm graph, we are at the first or moving to the second. I would think the mainstream adoption of chaos engineering, especially in cloud native, will happen probably in 23. It's primarily driven by Kubernetes itself. So Kubernetes crossed chasm maybe a few years ago, a couple of years ago. People are now moving to production with Kubernetes with larger applications. So the challenge obviously comes in. There's a lot of dynamism. So chaos engineering, there are a lot of preachers now. right? So shows like this, talks like this, conferences, it is taking the limelight out to the front, and there's a lot of advocacy happening. So all these are going to help the adoption curve getting faster. But I still see there is a culture thing that's still playing around, right? People are waiting for more success stories, and the word of mouth has to happen. And the more we make things easier for adoption, things will gain. But there is still reluctance and a bit of inertia out there, in my opinion.
So do you see like more and more competitors appear on the market selling, services around that, which is probably a good thing, right? In the grand scheme of things, it legitimizes the practice as a whole.
Yeah, no, definitely. We never wanted to be a chaos engineering company by design, right? So I was into data. It seems that there are many opportunities to build some cool things and create a business for your own, and also technology, right? So we see there are, including yesterday, there was another project that was accepted into CNCF. So we have 3 CNCF projects dedicated for chaos engineering. That was not the case 3 years ago. So we see many companies coming forward in the next couple of years, and a lot of investments also will happen into the reliability space. Chaos engineering is one of the ways to achieve reliability. I see a lot of things changing in this space, and we will be driving some of those changes, hopefully.
I'm hopeful for that too. And, that reminds me of the Chaos Carnival that you organized, and it looked like the interest seems to be growing. How was it received?
It was a fantastic show, in my opinion. Generally, after this pandemic started, there is this virtual webinar fatigue, right? So I was a little bit nervous about, I'm going to help start yet another virtual conference. What will be the probable success? With that mindset, we started, but the fantastic thing about was the response. The CFPs were pouring in. We had close to 1,500 registrations. So for the amount of marketing that we did, I would say it was all pretty organic. And the speakers were awesome. Really thankful for all those great stuff. So to me, it was a proof of the adoption of chaos engineering, or the enthusiasm, curiosity about chaos engineering in the market today, right? So I see more shows happening now. Similar success is happening. This all points to that there is a need for tools that help you achieve better reliability faster and with more ease of use. Yeah, Chaos Carnival was good, and I wanted to do it a little bit more open source way, right? So the Litmus community was trying to drive the organizing show rather than giving it to more of professionals run the show. We wanted let the Litmus team drive it.
Yeah, it's great. And even though we probably should schedule this event a bit better, because I think there were like 2 weeks between this and Conf42Cast engineering. Let's talk a little bit more about the future then. This is where we are right now. Where do you see this going, chaos engineering in general, let's say in a kind of medium term perspective, let's say 3 to 5 years, what do you expect to happen and what would you like to happen?
Chaos engineering, if you want to go a little bit back into the past, right? So it was a fantastic effort by the team at Netflix to introduce this at some scale. There was a lot of knowledge that was spread around. But right now, what happened in the last year or two is a splurge of tools to make easy for various needs. Not every tool is same or a platform is same. People are building for their needs, and some are open sourcing it, some are trying to do business with it. But what we have right now is a more focused approach by various people to bring chaos engineering to the next stage. I think we are successful in bringing the first step in it as a larger team of various people in the market today. I think today, if you look at various stuff, it's easy to start with chaos engineering. You can pick up things and then start doing it. Within a day, you can run some chaos experiments. So where are we going with this is 2 angles to it. One is the culture itself. The market and the target users of chaos engineering will start seeing it as something that is a must and helpful in their DevOps ecosystem. That's culture. People are more used to, you have to have a CI pipeline in your system. Similarly, where is the chaos stage or chaos strategy, and chaos first principle it is called. So that's a culture that is bound to change, and that will drive the adoption. And The other angle to it is the technology itself, right? And people will start using chaos engineering for more complex use cases or more complex scenarios. As they start using it, your first level bugs are all ruled out in production, and double, triple failures are going to be the drivers of your chaos strategy, and your mean time to failure will increase, but the result is going to be a failure, right? And when such a big failure happens, and what's your recovery? So we're going to get into that complex scenarios, and one thing that strikes that time is what is the observability criteria, right? So observability is something that's not common. There are various tools that have been born in the last decade, but Prometheus is one of the observability platform that has been found to be common in the modern systems. So Prometheus based observability has to have an idea of chaos, right? So that's what we call one of the chaos engineering principles that we want to drive within our architecture is open observability. We're not creating new standards for observability, but if Prometheus is an open metric for observability, what is a chaos metric that can get built into it, right? So open observability is going to evolve, in my opinion, in future. The use case that I would think that time is, take a complex system and build a complex chaos scenario within few days, and then put it into use and then observe what's going on, right? Right now, to do that, it takes about 6 weeks to a quarter for any solution architect to convince and then get that done. But in 3 years to 5 years, that may be a thing of 1 week, right? So that's the change that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, that makes sense. Kind of going back to the culture aspect, I think, one of the things that works the best with people is like a good story. Can you share a good story of an interesting or like a funny bug/outage that you experienced that people can gossip about? Something memorable?
Sure. I mean, like I've experienced many in my own SaaS platform operational dealing. But one of the things that I want to share here is how can a simple pod delete experiment can bring out something that's overseen in your application. So pod delete, people think, you do go and do a pod delete and Kubernetes spins it back up. So what's the big deal about it? So in this specific application with one of our users where we were working closely was the application was monolithic, and it was converted into microservice, obviously using all this Docker, Kubernetes pods, everything. And init time, that's more than what it's supposed to be, right? Basically, it takes more time to come up, the pod to be operational. And you've deployed stuff in a highly redundant fashion, you got more pods. So when you delete a pod, it's really taking time to come back up. Kubernetes did its job that, okay, I spin it back up, and there was more load on the other pods. Then what happens when you have more load? Your horizontal pod scaler, autoscaler kicks in, HPA, and before this pod comes up, you see actually, more nodes are being spun, right? So, more pods, and then eventually more. So it's all of a, just a pod delete resulted in haywire, right? So such things, right? So it goes back to your application guys, and then how did I not do it? Because you never tested at scale, at performing at this level, and it can be only possible to test it at this environment. It's not like a fun story, but a real story. This is simple experiments tested in different environments, different stages, can result in different outcomes, and that's what is the randomness. And your horizontal pod scaler can also have a bug, right? You expect it, and then if it doesn't work after an upgrade, something else will happen. So science cannot help here, your PhDs and all. So you just need to be practical, and then keep doing it. Expect that things will not work. Your response is what matters, right? So that's a story that I thought is worth sharing here.
That's a good one. And I'm guessing the CFO must have loved, seeing all the new instances blow up. Tell me, obviously Kubernetes is kind of still eating the world, well, at least the software world, and it's still on the uptick. What's the next best thing do you think we're going to see afterwards? And when the next big thing arrives, do you think it's going to like replace Kubernetes anytime soon? Or is it like too ingrained now and invested into that it's here to stay for a while?
My experience tells me that this itself is the big thing. Kubernetes has not reached saturation, right? We just started seeing large enterprises to get in, and there is virtualization that is being built underneath this Kubernetes thing. I see the next big things happening within Kubernetes itself. What I've seen in the last few years is the technology came in, Kubernetes, but there are various new areas that have started emerging, right? Service meshes, GitOps, how you do DevOps, right? And chaos engineering. And we will see new types of cloud services. It's not just the three big services clouds that you have are going to be driving a lot of innovation. There are going to be new services or new cloud platforms that are going to emerge. So all of these things, the next big thing really is how you do things rather than the technology itself, right? So I see kind of an evolution in the services that are going to be available. This ride will continue to happen at least next 5 years, maybe 10 years. At least there are enough challenges in my opinion. There's no room for next super big thing unless it's like totally different area of cryptocurrency and other things. But technology wise, containers are going to be there for quite some time.
I like that. So I'm picturing ChaosNative surfing the cloud native wave. But are there any plans to make, litmus and ChaosNative grow outside of the Kubernetes world too, and kind of, spill into the legacy stuff?
Yes, that's one of the reasons why, like all this spin-off also happened. We started talking to the enterprise users. So the use cases really are, we started moving to cloud native, right? Obviously, this is great, but what I need is a story around resilience for my application, which is going to move on to cloud native space, right? Litmus is a Kubernetes application, cloud native, and it can scale well. It's a platform, and we expect one Litmus for the entire enterprise, and then taking care of the needs of the collaboration of various users and experiment collaboration, policy collaboration, chaos strategy collaboration, all that stuff. But there's got to be the chaos workflows directed towards non-Kubernetes as well, and the platforms. Kubernetes is just one platform. What happens to my legacy platform? I have all that stuff. So you need to target towards a strategy of chaos rather than chaos experiments. So in my opinion, chaos experiments are going to become a commodity, right? So you won't be able to sell anything or differentiate yourself based on the experiments. It's going to take 2-3 years more, but with this kind of hubs approaching, chaos experiments are going to be available, right? So you need to use them and start writing new chaos experiments only for your legacy stuff. So that's where more work is going to be involved. For us, yes, we have included some new features to start chaos on non-Kubernetes recently, and we have examples of executing chaos against non-Kubernetes platforms. But we are going to invest more and more as we grow, supporting our enterprise users. It's still cloud native that drives, but there is going to be a hybrid environment.
I'll definitely going to follow what you guys do. It's really awesome. Sorry, running out of time, so I just want you to spill some beans and share some golden nuggets of wisdom with our viewers towards the end. 2 questions. One is, if you were to pick like one single thing that you did that provided the highest return on investment for your career, it could be any kind of investment, a technology, a course that you took, or whatever it is, what would it be and why would you recommend doing that?
I was not an open source guy 4 years ago, right? Or 4.5 years ago, right? So I pivoted into open source with a lot of advice coming from the investor community primarily, and also from some big CIOs, right? So the big decision was, let's start doing things in open source. So we had to leave everything that we built for 5 years and then start fresh, right? So in open source. And we were early in that space. We took on Kubernetes. So the biggest decision to move on to open source has yielded great results. So I would say I think open source is going to drive many things in future as well. Moving on to commercial open source software approach for business and building businesses has been one of my greatest investments in terms of decisions.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. There is just so much sense in that. And the last one then. Imagine that there is a kid somewhere at school that sees you doing that and thinks, okay, this chaos engineering and open source stuff is really cool. I want to be doing what you're doing when I grow up. What would you tell them? What would be your advice?
Chaos engineering will not be famous at that time when you grow up, right? So one thing that I have observed or learned is there are opportunities that keep coming, right? Technology keeps changing. The next big thing is a matter of either 3 years or 5 years, right? It keeps coming. But it's the set of people that drive this big change, right? That you work with. They could be anywhere. Most of the time, they're not within your team. And maybe you have worked with them in the past or talked to them in the flying plane, wherever, right? So I think if I had to go back 20 years, I would have spent more time in building deeper relationships with people. I would have created more opportunities now if I had built more relationships in the past. I would say focus on the human aspects of it. Be true to yourself, empathize, appreciate what others are doing. And that way you actually create opportunities for yourself. When the next big thing comes in, the journey will be much easier because you got a lot of friends out there who are open for feedback, right? But failing early is a good thing in any journey so that you can get back and then move fast.
And if the pandemic taught us anything, is that it's worth spending time and effort on the human aspect, and it's not that obvious when all of a sudden you can't go and see them in person. Uma, this has been a real blast. Thank you so much for coming, and thanks for being part of the Conf42 experience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Miko. It's been a pleasure being here.
Cheers.